The government has spent heavily to clean groundwater contaminated by toxic chemical spills. The government has spent heavily, they spent a lot of money to
Mm-hmm.
clean toxic chemical spills. To clean, okay, groundwater contaminated by. Okay, yet not even one spill site has been completely cleaned, and industrial accidents are spilling more toxic chemicals annually than are being cleaned up. So nothing has been cleaned completely, and industrial accidents are spilling more toxic chemicals annually. Sorry, I'm talking to myself
No,
so I
this is
can.
perfect. I love how you're reading. You're doing it great.
Okay, annually then are being cleaned up. So they're spilling more than they're being more of the government's budget should be redirected to preventing spills. I'm assuming that's the conclusion. Since prevention Since prevention is far more effective than cleanup, it makes little sense that the entire annual budget for prevention is less than the amount spent annually on one typical cleanup site.
All right, so what do we do now?
Um, read the questions, Tim.
Okay, you can read it, but if you read it, what do you need? Okay, read it. Read the question, Stem.
Okay, the proposal about how the government's budget should be redirected plays which of the following roles in the argument? Should be redirected. The proposal about how the government's budget should be redirected. More of the government should be. That's the conclusion.
Okay, so whenever we have something, we need to find the conclusion first. So I don't care if you have to read the questions and to know that you need to find the conclusion. But
Uh huh.
oftentimes, like if you know the conclusion, find that first. So our conclusion is more of the government's budget should be redirected to preventing oil spills.
My question is every time, I mean, for all of method of reasoning questions, it's not going to always be the conclusion that they're asking me about. It could be a premise, support, or
Yes.
something.
So we have to find the conclusion because whatever they are asking us about is going
Uh-huh.
to be in relationship to the conclusion.
Okay, I'm
Just like
writing
the
that.
last one that we just did. But this one
Okay.
then says the proposal about how the government's budget should be redirected plays
Plays which of
the
the following?
following roles. Yeah, like how fast you found that. You're like, wait, that's the conclusion. So go ahead and try these answer choices.
It represents an unsupported speculation. It's supported.
Mm-hmm.
So no. So no, there's tons of support around it. It both supports another claim in the argument and it's supported by others. It's supported by other claims. That doesn't sound right. It both. What is both?
It both, let's say it does both of these things. It both
Oh,
supports another claim and is supported by others.
supported by other claims. The conclusion is supported by other claims, and it supports other claims. No,
Why is that one wrong?
because it's a conclusion. It doesn't support other
Excellent.
claims.
Yes, perfect. Great job.
Wow. I can't believe I don't know these questions I don't know how they come up with these type of or
They're
answers.
they're so hard. You're doing great though.
It is a claim that the argument as a whole is structured to support. It is a claim that the argument as a whole is structured to support. So that is an argument as a whole structured to what does that mean? The last part is structured to support.
It's saying it is the claim that the argument is trying to prove.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep that one.
Okay.
It is how do you say that word?
Presupposition, I think presupposition. So this is
Okay,
saying that it's an assumption essentially, a pre-determined assumption.
I'm gonna write that. I feel like I've seen that word so many
Yeah,
times. Like,
yeah. Just change it to assumption. It's like it is an assumption on which the argument is explicitly based.
assumption. Okay, it is an assumption on which the argument is explicitly based on. Based. It's not an assumption.
Excellent. It's a conclusion. It can't be an assumption.
Yeah. It presents an objection to another proposal mentioned in the argument. There's no other proposal mentioned in the
Yeah, and
argument.
what is the objection? Like,
Right.
yeah, so it is the claim that the argument as a whole is structured to support. This is essentially saying it's the conclusion.
I just wish they worded it very like just simple terms. It's a conclusion. Just say that.
The other thing I want to point out on this argument is, so whenever we have the word since introduces a premise, right?
Right. I saw that for your conclusion thing to your main conclusion workshop.
Yes.
Since and then the premise will always follow. If it's like if it's asking what's the main conclusion or something. I don't know.
Since, for, and because. Yep. They introduce a premise. So since or because prevention is far more effective than cleanup. But then we go on and we say, it makes little sense that the entire annual budget for prevention is less than the amount spent annually on one typical cleanup site. How did you know that what you put in yellow is the main conclusion over that last sentence? Because both are conclusions. So how did you determine what the main conclusion was?
It just appeared to be more strong, to be honest. But from what I was told, I mean, I don't know. It just came off more strong. There's no.
So what this is called is a subsidiary conclusion. And a subsidiary conclusion is a conclusion, but we in turn use it to support our main conclusion. So this is also support for this, right?
How would you determine? So if you did come across two conclusions, what's your best approach for determining which is which?
Ask yourself which one is being used to support the other. So you could also do the because test. So
Okay.
more of the government's budget should be redirected to preventing spills because it makes little sense that the entire annual budget for prevention is less than the amount spent annually on one typical cleanup site. That makes sense, right? And remember, because has the premise. So, or does it make sense to say, or does it sound logical to say, it makes little sense that the entire annual budget for prevention is less than the amount spent annually on one typical cleanup site because more of the government's budget should be redirected by preventing spills.
Right. Yeah. It sounds off.
It sounds off. Yeah, because that's not, yeah, we're saying, yeah, perfect. So that's why C is our answer.